Hey, this is Jason Moss, the Georgia Manufacturing Alliance. Man, I am excited to give you an announcement about our first educational session for 2025. It's been really interesting to see how 2024 is wrapping up. It's been fun to watch. It's been a great year, and we are really looking forward to what we got lined up this year. And typically we wait to the second month of the year to kick off our educational session, but we got a special reason to be getting this one going in January. So, what I'd love to do, if you hadn't met my good friend Bo Groover, he is going to be sharing with us some insights of what's going on across the nation, what he's seeing, some of the trends that he's seeing across the nation with manufacturers of all different kinds. And I've asked him to be our education session presenter. The way that the day is going to line up, I'm going to kind of give you a framework of what we got going on for the day. Is It's going to be January the 23rd on Thursday. We're going to be hosting this, going to be from 11 o'clock to 2 o'clock, and it's a lunch and learn session. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to have Bo come in the first session, give us some outlines and some things to think about. We'll break for lunch, and it's going to be a working lunch. And then we've got a couple manufacturers that are going to come in, and they're going to share their employee education and development plan for the year. And then we're going to open that up for the whole audience, for everybody that's going to be in attendance to be able to give some insights and some feedback, what's working and what's not. So that's the overview of the day. But the reason we're doing this quick call is I wanted to introduce you to Bo and have him share a little bit about what we're going to be going over during his session. So, Bo, if you wouldn't mind, if you would tell us just a little bit about who you are, a little bit about your company, and just to touch on your background.
Absolutely. Thanks for hosting the call, Jason. As always, great to catch up with you. My name is Bo Groover. I run a manufacturing consulting firm that we focus on leadership development and Lean Six Sigma implementation, or we call it continuous improvement. Um, my background, I've been in manufacturing since 2000. I've been a plant manager, I've been a master black belt, I've been a director of manufacturing. And so my passion is how do we bring the people and the processes together, right? So a lot of companies get really excited about having great processes, and a lot of companies get really excited about having super happy people. And what we learned and continue to reinforce and learn is that you got to have both.
Okay.
So this session is near and dear to our heart because we think too many organizations are super excited about technology. They're super excited about AI, and they're super excited about software and all these things. And at the end of the day, there's a people element that is too often missing.
Okay.
We're going through this generational change right now. So we've got young people working with old people. Young people love technology. Old people may or may not like it. They don't communicate. There's all these preconceived kind of stereotypes that are running around.
Mhm.
And so culturally, a lot of organizations are struggling with how do we navigate this?
Okay.
And so when we're talking about employee development and retention and all of that, my conversation at this session is really going to be let's take a step back and talk about these humans that we're trying to develop and grow.
Okay. Perfect. Perfect. Well, that sounds good. So, give us kind of a framework. What are the top three or four things that you're going to be talking about? What are some of the bullet points that we need to be looking for?
Yeah, most people have probably heard the quote from Peter Drucker, culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Right.
Um, I want to start there and probably put a little more color to that, right? There's quotes around and people like to say the quotes, but if they really think about what that quote is saying, and then if they agree with the quote, are they embodying that through their processes?
Okay.
So that's probably step number one. Step number two is um, human motivation. There's a recipe for it, right? And we like to get wrapped around the axle about this generation and that generation and boys versus girls and all this stuff. And most of that's just not true.
Okay.
People follow good leadership at every age of their life.
Hmm.
Doesn't matter if you're black, white, boy, girl, yellow. It doesn't matter. You will
Right.
follow good leadership because you recognize it and you more importantly feel it.
Hmm.
And then the last one is really thinking about the employee life cycle.
Okay.
So, how do you look at an employee from the time that you hire them until they retire or they leave? And thinking about that overall process of an employee and why would they want to keep working here?
Okay. I got you. Well, that sounds great. What are some of the driving factors that cause you to really focus on those things? What's the
Yeah. So, again, I firmly believe Peter Drucker's quote, right? If I go into a manufacturing plant, and I've been in a lot of them, right? And our
Mhm.
sister companies do staffing, so we hear it from them and recruiting. So we're plugged into what people are saying. And too often, if we don't work on culture deliberately, it's going to devolve to a point,
Right?
right? And so we get really intentional about our logo. We get intentional about our ad campaign. We get intentional about our product and supply chain and lead times and ERP system. We're so intentional about how all that stuff works. And we think culture just happens.
Hmm.
And to a large extent, it does happen, but
Right.
it's not usually the culture that we want, right? We don't have people lined up to work here. Man, I want to go work with those guys because that place sounds awesome. When's the last time you heard that?
Well, there's a couple of times you hear that, but it is definitely the exception, not the rule.
100%.
Yeah.
And the problem is, right, we don't think that I don't understand it. I can't measure it. What's the ROI on culture?
Hmm.
So we get in our head and we overthink this thing too much. And so the reason that I chose these elements to talk through is because if you can buy into that first one, and I'm
Okay.
pretty confident I can explain it in a way that you're going to buy into it,
Right.
then all right, what do you do about it? Right. So
Hmm.
how do I go into it and build this culture that I want? Because I know that's the right first step. If I get my culture right,
Right.
I can weather any storm. I can make good stuff happen. I can grow. I can beat the competition. I can make my customers happy. It's
Hmm.
all based on that culture point.
Okay. Perfect. Perfect. Well, I mean, my goal is to make sure that we give deliverables where they can go on and implement the things that they learned from this session. Now, granted, we're not going to be make everybody masterful in the whole concept at one session, but we're going to give you some nuts and bolts and give you the tools to work with and the framework and the structure. Um, Now, let me dig in a little bit deeper. I know that I mean, that you and your team help serve manufacturers all across the country. We really focus just in Georgia, so the Georgia Manufacturing Alliance. Imagine that. So I've been getting some really neat feedback. The feedback that I've been getting from manufacturers just throughout the state has been very encouraging. What are you hearing from other manufacturers around the state or around the country rather?
Yeah, I think there's as much excitement and enthusiasm as I've ever seen it in my career, Jason, and
Mhm.
lots of reasons for that, right? We don't want to go into the whys too much, but it feels like everybody is just, I always think of the slingshot, right? You're pulling the slingshot back, it's back, and the rubber band's starting to quiver under the pressure. It's like, what's going to happen on January, right? 'Cause,
Uh,
so we're hearing the same thing. We're hearing it, out west. We're hearing it in the Midwest. We're hearing it
mhm.
obviously here in the Southeast. It just feels like there's just a massive amount of pent up enthusiasm, and we're so excited for 25.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's great. That's the same vibe that I'm getting across the board. Everybody that I'm talking to, they're just so fired up and excited. Some big contracts have been let before the end of the year, which has been, that's cool. But there's so much stuff that's teed up for January right now, and I mean, people have just got their finger on the trigger, ready to go. The one of the reasons that I wanted to make sure that we did this piece is we had a manufacturer that reached out to us and said, "Hey, man, this is the deal. We got our training and education program put together, but we want to benchmark it with somebody else. We want to see what somebody else is doing out there." And so I kicked it around. I actually put a little video out on LinkedIn just to see what the interest level was. And man, we got great feedback on that. Everybody's like, yeah, we would like to do that. So that's one of the reasons that was the kickoff reason for us to find out. It seemed like a good idea. I always for GMA, we always want to make sure that we structure our educational program based on what our members are asking for, right? And this is one of the pieces. I didn't come up with it. We wanted to, member came up with it and said, "Hey, can we do this?" So we're going to have other manufacturers share. So when you come and you got, if you're a manufacturer and you want to come share best practices, man, bring what you got. If you're willing to share and talk about what's working and what hadn't, and even bring some of your experience on some things that that you would encourage people not to do. Sometimes it's that landmine that you walk around that's the most valuable. But be ready for that. Um, yeah, again, the excitement, enthusiasm, people are fired up, ready to go. And I want to make sure that we get people properly prepared. I was talking to one of our members that works for a law firm, and they do a lot of like employment law and that kind of thing. And she's going to be bringing to the table her insights and expertise on the value from a legal perspective of making sure that you've got a solid training program so that if something happens to Johnny, you can document that Johnny has gone through the proper training and safety protocols and understands what they're supposed to be doing. And I mean, I'm not in that space in HR manufacturing training, but I would imagine that that's not the top of the list for everybody. But I think it's going to be really valuable to look at it from that vantage point as well. So we're pretty stoked about that. But well, cool. Well, who do you think should be here? Who should be attending this event? Title,
Yeah, so
company, that kind of thing. Yeah.
I think there's three groups. Right. So the first group are probably more on the executive level, right? They're founders, they're owners, they're C-level. They're looking at the whole purview of the enterprise.
Okay.
At the end of the day, they care a lot about culture and they care a lot about numbers, right? How are
Okay.
we performing? The second part would be HR professionals.
Mhm.
And I don't mean this disparagingly, but there's two arms of HR, right? One is the supportive, like we love our employees, we want to take care of them, well-being, all
Mhm.
that stuff. The other one's compliance.
Mhm.
I think it's more on the employee well-being partners, right? How do
Yeah.
you make this a great place to work? And then
Right.
the third one would be the operations focused guys, the plant
Mhm.
managers, the ops managers, the VP of ops, director of ops, who are know that there's a performance thing happening, but they're also feeling the pain right
Mhm.
up front about this generational transition. And what do we, how do we protect all of these folks who are getting ready to retire, right? The silver tsunami is a real thing. There's a bunch of
Yeah.
65 to 70-year-old people who are about to say, you know what, I've had enough fun. I'm going to go go do something I want to do
Mhm.
instead of working.
Yeah.
And the generations that are coming in are much differently. And
Mhm.
so, how do we build this culture on my shop floor that's going to enable us to not have a brain drain when these folks retire, and
Right.
also welcome these new folks into the fold so they feel like they belong, they want to be a part of it, they want to help us keep winning. So
Mhm.
those would be the three groups: the executives, HR on the employee wellness and happiness
Mhm.
side, and then the ops people. That would be the three groups that I think will get the most out of this session.
Perfect, perfect. That sounds great. And I think you touched on a couple things I just want to add to is making sure that uh, we're providing content and benefit for the onboarding because we know that there's a lot of hiring going on. I mean, I know what that looks like right now, which is exciting on the staffing side. But so we got to make sure that there's a solid, clear path for people to come in and onboard, but also for the long-term employees that they've got a path for success, right? And an opportunity to grow. And what does that look like for the long-term employee? Because so often, you get all excited about all the new hires and getting them pushed through the initial training, but if they don't have a path for growth, sometimes it can get stale. And I think that we're gonna be talking about all of those aspects of it from the HR side of the house as well. So, man, I am
Well,
really excited and thankful for you being part of this. Yeah.
if I can jump on that
Mhm.
because you struck a nerve, brother, as you
Yep.
always do. If and then this is the employee life cycle side, right?
Mhm.
So I watch companies just kill themselves to try to find the right person. They're running ads and they're scrubbing their job description and they're practicing
Mhm.
the interviews and they're doing all of this stuff on the new employee that they're trying to attract.
Right.
They got 150 people that already work there, and they keep showing up.
Right.
It's like, why aren't we concerned with protecting the 150 that are here
Mhm.
and trying to find the next best fit for the thing that we need? And
Right.
it's mind-boggling to me because it's so expensive when somebody leaves.
Yeah.
But it's almost like we just assume these people are going to keep showing up. Jason, they've
Right.
been here,
Right.
2 years, everything's
Yeah.
cool, they're going to
Mhm.
keep going.
Yeah.
Man, guys, come on, let's think about this thing differently.
You got to love on them. You know, the people that you got in, you got to make sure you take care of them and give them the tools and give them a path. You know, and that's the thing that I hear from the shop floor more than anything when I'm talking to folks. It's like I don't see a path for advancement unless 47 people die. I got nowhere to go. I got nowhere to learn. I've hit these few marks, but but helping companies get that and bake that into their culture, that's exciting stuff. I tell you, I'm really looking forward to this training. Again, it's January 23rd. It's a lunch and learn. The address and all is on our website. If you go for the details, you go to georgiamanufacturing.com and click on events, and then there's a whole list of our upcoming events. Registration is required for all of attendees to make sure that we got enough food for everybody, name badges. So go ahead and register now. If you're not registered, if you got any questions, feel free to give us a call at our office at 770-338-0051. If you got any questions about plugging in, about what we're going to get covered. And this is going to be a live in-person event. This is not going to be any virtual stuff. So this is you want to be in the room to get the data, and you will walk away with with a solid game plan and some new knowledge and knowledge that you got a support community that will help you get to whatever level of growth that you want to have. And I'm like I said, I'm really looking forward to getting the crew together and going over this in detail. Do you have anything else you want to wrap up do before we wrap up?
No, just reiterate what you said, man. Come out, rub elbows with some other folks who are wrestling with the same kind of problems. Share some stories, share some knowledge, and hopefully I can share some insights based on what my crew and my team are doing and hearing out in the marketplace. I think it's going to be a great event, and we're super excited to be there.
Perfect. Well, that sounds great. Well, that will sign off again. I look forward to seeing you guys January 23rd. And make sure I got the date right. At this educational session, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks, guys. Take care.
Bye bye.